Welcome to Keyless Century, and today we are going to take some time to look at the EV tax credit. Now, I don't want this video to be very long. I just want to really go over for those who are looking to buy a new electric vehicle or plug-in hybrid vehicle in 2023 and beyond. Because as of right now, the 2022 and previous tax credit did expire, as we know of, on August the 16th of 2022. Now, what does that mean? Well, a while back you had a $7,500 tax credit that was only eligible for vehicles that basically had a production amount of 200,000 units or less. Once you hit that 200,000 unit mark, then they basically started to wean you off of that tax credit, and over the course of another year or two, you would basically have that gone. Companies like Tesla and GM are two of the biggest names that we basically no longer have a tax credit like that in the US. So fast forward to 2022 in August, and we now have a new tax credit that was put in place due to the government's Inflation Reduction Act. And it now brings in a whole new set of rules that's going to basically make you eligible, or your particular vehicle that you're looking for eligible or not. So I want to kind of just go over three little quick things here, a couple slides that we kind of put together to kind of give you an idea of what you can look for and look for. So you still can get a $7,500 tax credit, but it's now broken up into two halves. Those two halves are going to be broken into the first section, which is where the vehicle is assembled, along with the components of the vehicle. And then the second part is where the battery components are assembled, and where they're actually resourced from. So there are certain countries that, for instance, you can't get any tax credit from if those battery resources are sourced from, let's say, China. I won't dive into too much of that at this point in time, because right now there's still some finalized little things that they're kind of battening down, but most of the stuff is kind of already in place. If you look at here, there's a list of vehicles that are currently assembled in the US, and they automatically will qualify a 3750 tax credit. As of 2023 and beyond, they would most likely qualify with a few caveats. So as you kind of go down here, there's a few vehicles that are made in the US, which I didn't even know they were, but like the Audi Q5, the BMW 330e, we run down a little bit more. Of course, we got the Hummer and the Hummer SUV. Those were no longer eligible for the older tax credit of $7,500 just because of the fact that GM had exceeded their 200,000 vehicle mark, and that was primarily because of the Chevy Bolt and the Chevy Volt. So once those are already sold and they're done, now that they've kind of come back and said, okay, here's a new tax credit, they pretty much allowed all the manufacturers now to have the ability to take advantage of this new tax credit, which is an awesome thing for you. And I tell you right now, I'm ecstatic about it, because I think that it's going to be a blessing for some and a curse for the others. So as we kind of go down this list, there's a few like notable notes that you'll see that, yeah, they were no longer available up until August of this year, but now they technically are, and moving forward, they will more than likely be they'll more likely be eligible for at least half of that tax credit in 2023 and 2024 and so on. So the way this kind of works is that's kind of how that part is set up. Now you have to be manufactured or assembled in North America. It has to be the US, Mexico, or Canada. Somewhere in those three countries that assembly has to be taking place. Now the good thing is GM, Ford, even Volkswagen now, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, these are all manufacturers who have plants in the US, and they will be the manufacturer. Even Toyota, Honda, and Hyundai, Kia, they all have plants in the US. So now they are actually trying to shift that overseas EV production from whatever they were doing overseas to now bring them to the States, which is awesome. It's going to take a few years though. So the good thing is there's a limit for this tax credit, and we'll get to that at the end, but there is a good silver lining with this whole scenario. So the other $3,750 goes into battery components. Well, you got to actually have your critical materials basically must be made with U.S. friendly countries. However, a lot of companies are bringing their battery manufacturing to the U.S. Now, the materials, it's fine that you got the battery plant here, but the materials to make the battery still has to be sourced out of other countries. The U.S. is going to start putting in money to try to source lithium and cobalt if they can in the U.S. But right now we do have agreements with Canada. They actually have a pretty large mining system up in Canada, and then of course Mexico as well. And then we have other countries that we're friendly with and in South America, which are really good that we can utilize their batteries. Korea is another country that we can. And the only other one that I can think of off the top of my head is Australia. And those are going to be fairly easy for us to kind of get those agreements in, and we'll get those batteries over. Moving forward, we start looking at other battery components there we have to have, to get that 3750. A percentage of it is going to change every year. So the critical materials minimum percentage value is required. In 2023, it's only 40%, but each year after that, it goes up by 10% until we get to 2027 and later, where it has to be at least 80% of those components are sourced through partners of ours. Then the other components themselves, the battery components themselves, once again, it's a 50%, so half of that percentage has to be met in 2023. And then it moves up 10% all the way up until 2029, where at least 100%, and that's a very big lease, but 100% of those battery components must be sourced in the U.S. Now, the reason why I kind of went back and said, hey, let's step back for a minute is just because of one big major reason. So if you think about it from this point, we have a 10-year window that we have to work with. Now, come 2024, this combined $3,750 to combined $7,500 won't just be a taxable income credit at the end of the year. It will actually be a upfront rebate. So it'll be an instant rebate off of the price of the car that you're looking for, which is outstanding. And I can tell you right now, most people are gonna love it. So the cars themselves are broken down into two categories. If it is a SUV or a truck, the car must not exceed $80,000 on the MSRP. So roughly, that's like 90% of the cars or the trucks and SUVs that are out right now. They've exceeded that. The Ford F-150 Lightning, it does have a base price in the 40s, but let's just say a lot of people aren't going to be buying that truck because they want to get the upgraded model. That might put you over that $80,000. On the flip side, though, you could potentially buy a Cadillac Lyriq for only $66,000 and it still qualifies. If you're going to the Chevrolet Silverado, same thing. They're going to have a base model in the 40s to 50s, and then you're going to have a higher end model that's going to be probably over the $80,000. The Rivian R1T and the fictional yet to be seen Tesla Cybertruck, pretty sure they're going to be over $80,000. I know that there is one configuration of a Rivian R1T that is right at $80,000, and a few people have purchased that one, so they will qualify. But most of the situations that people are buying those trucks, it's going to be well over, so that's going to be an issue. And then we start adding in other SUVs out there, the big 3-row SUVs that are coming, the new Rivian R1S. There's also the Cadillac, excuse me, not Cadillac, but the Mercedes EQS, I believe is going to be well over $100,000. There is, of course, the Hummer. Yeah, whatever. There's no way in the world that's going to qualify. So those are cars or SUVs that just aren't going to qualify for that tax credit. Now, if it's a passenger car, you have a $55,000 limit. Now, this one's a little bit more to kind of absorb, right? You can kind of see that quite a few cars still don't qualify. There's quite a few Teslas that don't. Only the Model 3 is going to qualify for this one. But then you have like the Ioniq 5, the Kia EV6. There's the Ford Mustang Mach-E, the ID4 from Volkswagen, the new Chevrolet Blazer, the Chevrolet Equinox. These are all like quote unquote crossover or passenger cars. So they could be thrown into either category, but they will still be under $55,000 for most of their models. Now, as we kind of look at the Chevy Bolt EUV, or the Chevy Bolt itself, the Nissan Leaf, these are all cars that are in that price category. And we've got a host of new electric cars that are coming. So those are the two main categories for the car to qualify. Well, what about the individual? What about the joint filers, right? Or what about those who, your income? Well, that's the other part. We talked about the 6-figure and 7-figure, income owners there. Yeah, if you're making more than $300,000 as a partnership between you and your partner or your spouse, you're not going to qualify for the tax credit. If you are head of household and make over $225,000, you won't qualify. If you're a single filer and making over $150,000, excuse me, yes, you won't qualify. So you can see what they're doing here. They're shaping this up to be more of a tax credit for the many and not for the small. This tax credit was not only just designed for new cars. They decided to go ahead and give you a used car tax credit, which there are some really cool things about this. But I gotta tell you, I don't see how in the world you're gonna buy more than 1 or 2 different model cars to match this. Because right off the bat, for you to qualify for this $4,000 tax credit or 30% of the vehicle price, right? The car has to cost less than $25,000. Let me say that again. The car, truck, SUV, has to cost less than $25,000. Do you know what models that you can find at this current year that's $25,000 or less on the EV? You're looking at a 2014 or 2015 or probably a 2012, 2013, model. Excuse me, not model, but Chevy Bolt, 2015 Chevy Bolt. You're looking at a 2012, 2014, maybe a 2015, 2016 BMW i3. You're looking at a Nissan Leaf. You're looking at, that's it. I mean, that's really it. If you can find a smart car out there or something like that. There are so few cars that match this criteria. Now, in 5 years, maybe that number's a little bit better. But if the economy keeps going the way it's going, if inflation keeps going the way it's kind of tapering off and it won't really thin out for a few years, it's still going to be a very long time before you're actually able to get a brand new, used, well taken care of plug-in hybrid or EV vehicle for under $25,000. It's just not going to happen. And then the thing is, it does have to be more than 2 years old. So there's an age limit there. You cannot buy it from a one owner or a person-to-person sale. It has to be done at a dealership. So that, and in fairness, I kind of see why that's a thing, because there are tax forms that the dealership has to fill out to get this credit back to them. Whereas a personal owner, that could be a big hassle. I'm not going to say that someone couldn't do it, but it could be a big hassle for someone to have to deal with. Now, just like the other new car tax credit, there's also a financial limit that you have to deal with when it comes to how much you make and who's eligible. And basically, this is even worse than the new car, which if you look at the value, I can understand why. For anyone that is a single person, you can't be making more than $75,000 to get this tax credit. If you are head of household, it can't be over $112,500 to be exact. And if you're joint filers, it cannot be over $150,000. Now, realistically, you say that those numbers are somewhat unrealistic in a way. But when you start thinking about what the national average of what people are bringing home, hey, we still have people that barely make $30,000 and $40,000 a year, and they're trying to support a family of 2 or 3 or 4. So I get it. I understand what they're trying to do, but I really think that part may make more sense. I just think that the vehicle price should have at least been $35,000. That would have made a lot more sense and brought a little bit more options to the person who's looking at buying a vehicle. So that's it. And I wanted to take some time to talk about the new tax credit, and I wanted to make sure that, you know, for those who are not really staying just abreast of everything and just looking at every single thing that comes out in the news about this tax credit, I wanted to make sure that it was there and you knew the knowledge was there, just extra education. And like I said, don't take my word for it. Please go out here and look at some of these other YouTubers out here. Go online, do your research, because the more informed that you are, the better buying decision that you will make. So thanks again for joining Keyless Entry, and I hope that you continue to come back, like and subscribe this video, and you have a great day, drive safe, and we'll see you soon.